Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. As a musician, I've spent countless hours with Mozart's music. We all know the story, right? The child prodigy, the divine genius who seemed to pull perfect music out of thin air. He's often painted as this almost otherworldly figure, a vessel for pure musical beauty. But today, I want to take you behind the music stand and show you a different Mozart, the real Mozart, the man behind the myth. We're going to uncover the struggles, the secrets, and the very human flaws that made his genius not just divine, but deeply, fascinatingly complex. Forget the powdered wig and the porcelain doll image. Let's meet the real Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. One of the most persistent myths about Mozart is that he composed everything perfectly in his head, from start to finish. The popular image is of him just sitting down and transcribing a fully formed symphony, not a single note out of place. The movie Amadeus famously shows this, with Sally rewatching in awe as Mozart dictates entire pieces without any correction. It's a great story, but it's just not true. It makes his genius seem like a magic trick, something completely unattainable. The reality is far more interesting and, for us musicians, far more inspiring. Mozart worked incredibly hard. We know this because we have the proof. His sketches. For a long time, many of his drafts and sketches were hidden or dismissed. His wife, Constance, after his death, wanted to preserve the effortless genius myth, likely to make his works more valuable and legendary. But musicologists have since uncovered hundreds of pages of his drafts. These aren't just little doodles. They are extensive sketches showing him working through ideas, trying out different melodies, harmonies, and structures. You can see his thought process on paper. For example, for his famous Haydn quartets, which are some of the most complex chamber works of the era. We have sketches that show him wrestling with difficult counterpoint, crossing things out, and starting over. This doesn't diminish his genius at all. In fact, it enhances it. It shows a mind so fast and so brilliant that what we see as a struggle was him processing musical possibilities at lightning speed. He wasn't just a conduit for divine inspiration. He was an active, tireless craftsman, constantly honing and perfecting his art. Knowing he put in the work makes his achievements feel even more monumental. So, if he wasn't a musical angel, who was he? Well, he was a rebel. Mozart lived in a time of strict social hierarchies, where musicians were often treated like servants. But Mozart had a fiery sense of his own worth. He famously clashed with his employer in Salzburg, Archbishop Colorado. He felt constrained, underappreciated, and underpaid. The tension culminated in a legendary confrontation where Mozart was, and I'm not making this up, literally kicked out the door by the Archbishop's steward. This act of defiance led him to Vienna to become one of the first major freelance composers in history. It was a bold, risky move, and while he had periods of incredible success, his rebellious nature and, frankly, his immaturity often got in the way. He and his wife Constanze loved living the high life. They spent money as fast as they made it on lavish apartments, fancy clothes, and parties. This led to constant financial problems. We have letters he wrote to his friend and fellow Freemason Michael Putberg, begging for loans. These letters are heartbreaking. They show a man stressed, desperate, and humbled. He wasn't a savvy businessman. He was an artist who struggled with the practicalities of life. This flawed, impulsive man is a far cry from the serene genius of legend, and it makes the sublime perfection of his music all the more astonishing. He could be in financial ruin and yet turn around and write something as joyful and perfect as In kleine Nachtmusik. Mozart's inspiration also came from some very human and sometimes scandalous places. Let's talk about the Magic Flute, one of his most beloved operas. It's filled with themes of enlightenment, brotherhood, and virtue. But the inspiration for one of its most famous characters, the Queen of the Night, might have a much more personal origin. Many scholars believe the Queen of the Night was inspired by his sister-in-law, Josepha Hofer. Josepha was a famous soprano, known for her incredible vocal range, and she was the first person to sing the role. But their relationship was complicated. There's evidence to suggest that Mozart may have had an affair with her, or at least a very intense flirtation, during a time when his wife Constanze was away at a spa. Now, think about the Queen of the Night. She has two of the most demanding and dazzling arias ever written for a soprano, showcasing incredible vocal fireworks. It's a part tailor-made for a virtuoso singer like Josepha. But the character herself, she starts off seeming like a sympathetic victim, but is revealed to be a vengeful, manipulative villain. Was Mozart writing a tribute to Josepha's talent while also passing a private, cutting judgment on her character? We can't know for sure, but it adds a fascinating layer of personal drama to this grand, philosophical opera. It shows how Mozart could weave his own messy life experiences into his art, transforming personal conflicts into timeless music. As we approach the end of Mozart's short life, the mysteries only deepen. The story of his final work, the Requiem, is the stuff of legend. A mysterious stranger, cloaked in gray, commissions a Requiem Mass, a Mass for the dead. As Mozart works on it, his own health fails, and he becomes convinced he is writing the score for his own funeral. It's incredibly dramatic, and for the most part, it's true. The stranger was a messenger from a Count Walsing, an amateur musician who planned to pass the work off as his own. But Mozart didn't know that. Ill and overworked, he threw himself into the composition with a feverish intensity. He told Constanze that the music was for himself. The Requiem is filled with terror, grief, and moments of sublime hope. When you listen to the Lacrimosa, a movement he supposedly sketched on his deathbed, it's hard not to feel the weight of his own mortality. He died before he could finish it, and it was completed by his student, Franz Xaver Sussmayer. To this day, scholars debate which notes are Mozart's and which are Sussmayer's, trying to untangle the final thoughts of the dying genius. The piece remains a powerful, haunting testament to his final days, and it's not the only piece surrounded by last-minute drama. Take the overture to his opera Don Giovanni. The story goes that Mozart composed it the night before the premiere. He had been procrastinating, spending the evening with friends. Constanze, his wife, finally sat him down, gave him some punch to keep him awake, and told him stories to keep his spirits up while he wrote. He supposedly finished the score just in time for the copyists to get the parts to the musicians, who then played it at the premiere without a single rehearsal. They sight-read it. Can you imagine sight-reading one of the most dramatic and complex overtures ever written? Whether the story is entirely accurate or slightly exaggerated, it points to Mozart's incredible ability to work under pressure. The overture perfectly sets the stage for the opera, moving from terrifying, dark chords that foreshadow the dawn's damnation to the lively, celebratory music of his womanizing lifestyle. It's a masterpiece of dramatic pacing, apparently created in a single, caffeine and punch-fueled night. It's another example of how Mozart's chaotic life produced perfectly ordered art. So, who was Mozart? He was not just the smiling child in the portrait or the divine vessel of legend. He was a hard-working craftsman who sketched and revised his work. He was a rebel who defied the system and paid the price. He was a man who struggled with money, who loved parties, and who had a complicated, messy personal life. He found inspiration in everything from his sister-in-law to his own impending death. The real Mozart is infinitely more fascinating than the myth. His genius wasn't effortless. It was earned through relentless work, fueled by a complex and often troubled life. By embracing his flaws and his humanity, we don't diminish his music. We deepen our appreciation for it. We see that this sublime, perfect art was created by a real, imperfect person, and that, to me, is the most inspiring story of all. It reminds us that greatness isn't about being flawless. It's about creating beauty and order out of the chaos of life. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the real Mozart. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories from behind the music. Let me know in the comments what you find most surprising about Mozart. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time.